Chapter 101 Su buys super large manor. Before, the construct reservoir was surrounded by large mountains, and the peaks were generally 300 to 400 meters above the water surface of the reservoir. Now, those large mountains were gone, and some ravines had been filled up. Thousands of acres of land surrounded the reservoir. There were two rivers in the middle forming a Y shape, flowing from the upper stream into the reservoir. There was also a very beautiful stone bridge on each river. The entire manor was only 40 to 50 meters above the reservoir on average. Most of it was flat land, and only two small hills with a height of 50 meters and a very gentle slope remained. The exterior of the manor was a rugged and beautiful 10-meter-high wall made of rocks which had a diameter of over 1 meter. It just happened to use all the stones that had been dug up from several mountains. The manor had been divided into different areas according to the original establishment plan. The spiritual fields were still bare and empty, and the irrigation pipes for supplying spiritual water had already been laid. They were all connected to the large water pump by the crack in the bottom of the reservoir. Other greening had also been completed. Giant cedar, ginkgo, redwood, cherry, and other trees had successfully been planted. Because of the existence of pets, these trees almost did not have trouble surviving and were all extremely lush. Now, they were building some houses, including their own, for residential and commercial purposes. Besides those, they planned to build factories, infrastructures, roads, etc. Some slabs were laid on the water surface next to the shore of the reservoir, which concealed its original ruggedness. These slabs formed a circular path around the reservoir. Other than these were several small piers, which made it more convenient to fish or play. Overall, the reservoir looked beautiful with its present setup and no longer had a trace of its original appearance. Standing here, they could not even imagine what its original appearance was. Once all the other houses and infrastructures were built, this place would look like a paradise. Yes, it has really changed a lot. It's really cool to be able to fish at the sides of the reservoir now. Subai also nodded in shock. It was really incredible for this place to have experienced such a great change in just 2 months. This was the power of pets. It was truly worth hiring high-level large pets to move the mountains, for with their help, the speed of construction had gone beyond what was achievable 100 years ago. Do you two know how much money was spent on this? Asked Father Su as he took in their shock expression, feeling very satisfied. How much? Subai was also a little curious. A total of 550 million yuan. I bought all the rights to use this land and spent 500 million. The remaining 50 million was the construction cost. We estimated that all these will cost tens of millions once built. And we must pay all that in 10 years' time, or else they'll take everything back. Father Su nodded and explained. With his son's connections, he simply bought all these without second thought. Anyway, the debt was already plenty. There was no difference in owing tens of millions or over 500 million. Dad, you're very courageous, praised Subai. He actually wanted to let his father buy this land directly but was afraid that the latter would be scared after seeing their large debt. Therefore, his dad's courage had really given him a shock. We'll never be overwhelmed by our debts, Dad. Since we owe them a lot, they won't let us go bankrupt. Su Yu patted his father on the shoulder like a small adult. Talk is cheap, little boy. Do you know how long it took me to convince your mother? Father Su slapped his son lightly as he glared at him. It's all right. I already talked it through with my teacher. She'll send someone over for inspection in the next few days. When it's over, we can start planting spiritual plants and then start earning revenue. Subai nodded, still admiring his father's courage. Although he did not know how his father had succeeded in making his mother agree, Subai admired him. Because of the space cracks and monsters in this world, the land was not as valuable as 100 years ago. Combined with Subai's connections, it was quite reasonable to have only spent 500 million on this. Land that belonged to oneself was always different from that of others. I already know this. You're so useful. His father patted his shoulder and then pointed to 2 distant hills. See those 2 hills that form the left blue dragon and the right white tiger? The one on the left is for you, while the one on the right is for your younger brother. Later, we will build a 3-story building on top for each of you. The development of the hills and the surrounding area has also already been planned. We can start construction whenever. That sounds great. I was gonna say that I want to build a few sacred fields. Now, there's a perfect place for those. Subai nodded in satisfaction. He had an idea that he wanted to put into practice, and that was the perfect place for it. He would catch some strange pets and raise them in this big place. After strolling around the manor with his father and younger brother, he really realized how big it was. However, the happiest were still his two pets. Both ran around after they heard that this huge place was the Su family's property now, and naturally they were very satisfied with it. Father Su went to assist the construction supervisor after chatting with his son for a while Subai took his brother to the edge of the reservoir. Both did their things, with the younger one fishing and the older one training his pets. Be it the newly awakened skills of the cub or the newly learned skills of the little tyrant, all required constant practice to increase the speed of cohesion, accuracy, etc. Buddy, unfold Thorn's domain. Subai looked at Purple Jade and instructed. He had yet to see how big the cub's Thorn's domain was after it got promoted to the warlord level. Howl tilde take a good look, Arbai, I'm now very impressive. With a howl, the cub unleashed its Thorn's domain. A huge field with the diameter of 30 meters appeared, but the vine whips inside were now a mix of thick and thin, some as thick as thighs and some as thin as arms. Your vines are much larger than when you were a servant. Not bad. Subai exaggerated a bit in his praise. Raw. Arbai, look at me, I've also improved. The little tyrant looked at him with its fierce, little eyes and roared. It activated lava domain in the next moment, and a 10-meter radius domain was constructed. Within it, the ground was fiery red and hot flames danced in the air. Wow, you two are very impressive. Let's train our skills next. Subai nodded. The cub first demonstrated its ability, wood spirit replacement, which it got after breaking through to the warlord level. As it exuded a wave of spiritual power, it disappeared in place for about a second and then reappeared in front of another vine. This skill was very practical, but it was not at proficient level yet, taking the cub a long time to perform it. Little tyrant, keep practicing with your older sister. If you interrupt the wood spirit replacement and manage to catch Purple Jade, I'll reward you with 3 energy medicinal cakes at once. As for you, lassie, if you get caught by your sibling once, you'll have 1 less energy medicinal cake at night. Subai chuckled. Nothing else was more important than food to the little tyrant. Raw tilde the little tyrant put down its half-eaten volcanic rock and ran toward the cub with an excited expression. It would not show mercy for the sake of food. Howl. Carrot, stupid Arbai. Luring us with food all the time. Letting out a cry of disdain, Purple Jade activated wood spirit replacement and moved quickly. Subai found some plants to extract wood attribute light balls and fused them with the weaker vine whips in the domain. It was not that he disliked integrating these light balls into the cub's stronger skills, but those skills were all one-offs and were released by spiritual power. The light balls he picked up could not strengthen the spiritual power of the pet at present and could only improve its primary skills like vine whip and the fireball. Moreover, because of the simplicity of the primary skills, there were not so many restrictions and they could be casually used in fights without fear. Skills like the continuous energy burst, meanwhile, would not work. If he rashly applied an external force, it might explode with a bang. Thus, he had only helped strengthen the cub's primary skills. It was not that he wanted this, it was just the only way. With the motivation of food, the two pets trained very diligently today. After Subai finished fusing the light balls, he did not idle, either, and exercised on the side by himself. He carried a Thyrigin stone on his back and practiced carrying weights through the thorns domain of the cub. In fact, the weight was more than 30 jin. He had bought some small lead sandbags before, and whenever he was not playing with Chen Roshua, he would take these with him. These lead blocks were not heavy individually, but when combined up to 4 kilograms, the result was impressive enough to carry them for a long time. Howl, stupid Arbai. I'm left with fewer than 10 medicinal cakes now. Once the morning training ended, the cub lay on the ground and glared at Subai. It dug its claws on the ground, seemingly having the impulse to bite its owner. The little tyrant happily ate its volcanic rock as it waited for him to deliver its lunch, which now consisted of 30 more energy medicinal cakes. Come on, here's your lunch. Subai brought out their lunch for them. The little tyrant's portion was a small pot piled high with food, while Purple Jade's only had half a pot filled. Raw, *tilde, the little tyrant choked on its food and drank some lava before swallowing it. The cub did not care and wanted more. Stupid Arbai, I wanna eat more. After finishing its meal, Purple Jade kicked the bowl angrily to vent its dissatisfaction on its owner. This was exploitation. You wanna eat more? Supervise your sibling this afternoon, then. While he trains his blighted fireball, you'll use your vines as his target. As long as he doesn't hit your vines, you'll have 2 more energy medicinal cakes for dinner. Your brother also has to practice his concealment skill, Berry. If you can find him, you get another medicinal cake. As for you little fellow, you'll get 1 less medicinal cake if you fail. Subai looked down at his 2 pets as he gave these instructions. Even if Purple Jade ate less, its spiritual power would definitely be supplemented. Howl. *omega ***. Fine. I agree to your conditions. Stupid Arbai, just you wait and see. The cub cheered itself. No, I disagree. With a strike of its claw, the little tyrant crushed a 30-centimeter tall basalt rock as it glared indignantly at its owner with small fierce eyes. Those who played with its food were unforgivable. Your objection is invalid. Bring out your full strength. Blighted fireball is the same as fireball. It's not as if you've never practiced it before. Subai glanced at his pet sideways. No, I still disagree. The little tyrant refused to train. How about you supervise my training later, too? If I fail, you'll get an extra energy medicinal cake. He thought for a while and decided to do himself dirty. After taking a break, they resumed training that afternoon. Just like an online writer writing a novel, their training could not be interrupted and must be done daily. Subai helped the little tyrant strengthen its fireball skill first as the 2 pets practiced in pairs before finally letting the 2 supervise his training. I'm dead. In the evening, Subai collapsed onto the ground with his body numb from pain. Howl. Stupid Arbai, now you know the pain of training? Glancing at him, Purple Jade raised its paw and pressed it down on his head. The cub then slowly poured in wood spiritual power on him to recover his strength. Although it still felt dissatisfied, it responsibly healed its Pet Tamer. It's so nice to have you. I'll give you a snack tonight. Don't be angry, I did it out of good intentions. Subai recovered and hugged his 2 pets. Howl. Chemph. Both turned their heads and refused to look at him. Subai, I'm gonna go fishing, do you want to tag along? Subai stretched and looked at the 2. Upon hearing this, his pet's interests were piqued. The cub found it fun, while the little tyrant wanted to eat fish. They returned to the side of the reservoir and found Suyu. He walked over and asked, "Younger brother, how's the harvest?" "It's amazing, big bro. Can you believe that I caught 3 grass carps which weigh 4 catties each? Sure enough, this kind of empty fishing spot is awesome." The younger boy laughed happily. The surrounding conditions of the reservoir were arduous, and there were many places where it was impossible to fish, but now that slabs had been laid on its periphery and a wharf had been built, fishing was possible at all sides. Suyu had never been on this spot before today. Subai lifted the bucket and looked inside to see not only 3 large grass carps but also a lot of sardines and yellow tails. He excitedly exclaimed, "Come, let me try my hand here as well. Bring your fishing rod to the side." "Okay, you came just in time, I already got tired of fishing." Suyu stood up. Since he was not fishing anymore, he arranged 2 fishing rods for his older brother's pets. At this moment, a wonderful scene was presented. They held their fishing rods and stared intently at the tranquil water in front. Gradually, the sky darkened, but they still had not yet caught anything. Raw. The little tyrant had caught something. It violently raised its fishing rod, pulling it up and shouting excitedly, "Hey, don't!" Before Subai finished speaking, a loud bang sounded. Just as the big golden carp emerged from the water, the fishing rod broke. Raw. With quick eyes and claws, the little tyrant raised its hand and launched a fireball. The surface of the water exploded with a bang, and a large amount of water evaporated. The little tyrant used its spiritual power to haul the fish up in the air, and soon, a large fat golden carp fell into its claws. It looked down at the carp and revealed a jubilant grin. Su bai, su yu. This carp had probably accumulated 8 lifetimes of bad luck, had it not. From the side, Purple Jade nodded and thought that this was a very good method.